we are seeing just amazing improvements in the technological capabilities. And, they keep blowing me away about the new things that AI can do. And thanks to all the technologists who are doing that. At the same time, what really matters for society is translating that into business value, actually creating productivity and making workers and consumers and all of us better off. That's a lot harder. It turns out that happens slower with every technology, and the real bottleneck is making that happen. So this panel is going to be about how we make that happen, why it's important to make that happen, and that's, the technology in some sense is useless unless we do that. And so that's what this panel is about. It's what I focus a lot of my work now at the Stanford Digital Economy Lab, also my company WorkHelix. And so I want to just reintroduce our panelists. So to my left here, we have Athena Kanyarura.
Kanyura.
Okay, Kanura. She's the LATAM CEO and Global Chief Strategy Transformation Officer at Pepsi. And over here is Nelson Griggs. He's the NASDAQ president. So let me just dive right in about how we do this. So, a lot of companies I talk to, they're sort of stuck in what they call pilot purgatory. They have all these AI pilots and they're not really scaling or generating value. PepsiCo seems to have been doing a lot better. What changed when you started getting real ROI from AI? And tell us what your process, what are your secrets?
Many, besides, of course, the board loving me. A couple of things. So one, the fact that I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer helps a lot, because what we've done from the very beginning, we made sure that the AI strategy and the technology strategy is part of the business strategy of the organization. So we never invested in anything that wouldn't yield an ROI, whether it's top-line impact, net revenue impact, impacting the volumes, impacting the profit, EBIT, or increasing the revenue per head count. So there was always a financial KPI associated with the investments in this space. Then we've said we need to be very deliberate on how we make investments horizontally and vertically. What does it mean? Okay, if you look at what is, for our industry, the burning platform is one, optimizing supply chains and operations, because we are a massive manufacturing organization, thousands of plants, warehouses, DCs, one of the biggest agro companies in the world. So how do you optimize that value chain? Number one priority, while how do you engage consumers? So it's very clear that when you make investments, you need to think of the front of the office and you need to think of the enablement of the office. So very clearly from the very beginning, we said, okay, to engage consumers and to fulfill that demand, we need to have the right AI infrastructure, we need to have the right data infrastructure, we need to have the right application layer, interconnected, and the processes to go with that. So we went very quickly from probably a year where we did pilots and we allowed the markets and the functions to do pilots, to a very centralized governance of how we take those pilots that we thought, okay, now they can drive the business to a scaled capability for the company. And unlike probably other companies, we didn't say, oh, let's start with the small markets. We started with the biggest markets of PepsiCo. We started with the US, with Mexico, with UK, with China, with South Africa. So where we could see the impact and therefore we could convince the ecosystem of PepsiCo that it's now time to go.
Tell us, what are some specific applications that you found successful? Where have you found AI is really boosting your ROI?
Okay, so one is we have what we call integrated business planning. So we are able now to plan 24 months ahead of the curve, getting the demand signals from the consumer, translating that to commercial planning, financial planning, supply planning capabilities, where pretty much in a day, you are able to fulfill the demand and at the same time translate that to omnichannel experiences. So that already we are live in every single market in the organization. Then if we were to think of how we are redesigning manufacturing, what we call smart manufacturing, for us, every packaging line costs money. So how are you able to do very smart predictive asset maintenance using the latest technology, but also digital twin on the packaging lines, which is also something that we have across the organization. So One, it allows you to plan better, more efficient, and drive much more convergence on the sales side. The other one allows you to be very profitable, drive operational excellence, drive true efficiency, and therefore bottom line for the organization.
Great. I'll want to come back to you a little bit about some of what's happening in your workforce. But first, let's bring Nelson Griggs into the conversation, president at NASDAQ. And we all think of NASDAQ as a stock exchange and all these listed companies, but you do a lot more than that. And so tell us, two things. First off, tell the audience a little bit about the broader businesses that NASDAQ does and how AI is affecting those. And you've been a very technology-forward organization for a long time, including with AI right now. What are some of the things that you found most successful?
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'll describe NASDAQ very briefly, saying there's three pillars. There's liquidity, which everyone knows us for. That's our trading engines. We have 17 of those around the world, and we list companies. We've been doing that forever. And then the middle is transparency, where we have a very large-scale data business, both regulated data, alternative data. We have one of the largest index franchises in the world. Yeah. And then the last that most people don't know us about is called integrity. We supply technology to 130 exchanges in the world, run their markets. We also have the largest reg tech, risk tech, and anti-financial crime business. So that's a newer vector for NASDAQ that is very, very scaled throughout the world. So when we look at AI, I'll bring up two main areas. One, it's what we call AI preparedness. So for us, we are very regulated. So do we have the right governance? Then to us, next leg was, do we have the right talent and leadership that is really able to make sure we're moving everything forward? And then the biggest thing, two things for us to be prepared was, is our data organized? If you're a legacy company, do you have your data organized in a way it can be used effectively in AI? And last, is your infrastructure modern? So are you in the cloud? Can you kind of work with all the tooling out there? So that was a kind of a 24 project for NASDAQ. And then he starts saying the next piece is, how do you find the projects that are scalable to impact NASDAQ? So we are working with Workable, your company. And what we've really done there is look at every single role inside NASDAQ. What are their tasks that they're doing? And how can we bring AI into those areas? And some of the biggest for us is in half our employees almost are involved in the whole product lifecycle development. So really, how do you automate those tasks and bring agentic AI workers to that? And then we also ingest and put out billions of data points. So this has been a huge area for AI for us, how we do that in a more automated and speedy fashion.
Yeah, I got to say, it's been a real pleasure working between WorkHelix, my company, and NASDAQ, because you are really good at having your data organized. I have to say, not all companies are as good about that, but you understand data. You manage it for your own company. You help other companies understand data. And that's the lifeblood of machine learning. It really gets things going.
Yeah, so two comments on that. Internally for NASDAQ, we have a lot of data we have to organize. And that is both regulated data, unregulated data, how is it categorized, what data can we use. So all the metadata has been just enormously helpful to us. We started that journey a long time ago, but it is much more, it makes the AI process much more scalable and effective. But one product I'll talk about is we have a product called Verifin, and that helps banks, about 3,000 banks, fight crime inside their systems. So check fraud, wire fraud, and they process over 2 billion alerts every week. So now 2 billion a week. So what we are now able to do, we actually offer digital workers in that product to our clients, because they might have to have 100, 200 employees analyzing those outputs. Now we have digital workers to do a lot of that work.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about it. So, you're obviously using AI technology inside your organization, but you're also helping you're providing technology for a lot of other organizations. Tell us what's working and what you bring to those other organizations. You mentioned Verifin.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing when you work externally is, are your clients as prepared as you are to leverage the data? So I mentioned, are they on the cloud? Do they have the modern capabilities to ingest data? So we are helping our clients along that journey, but I think the top thing they are looking for is that ROI. So you talk to banks, and 90% of banks are using AI in some form or fashion, but only 7% have scalable projects across the entire firm. Wow. So when we come in with a large product that really helps them regulate their systems, look for new regulations, how do we help them find ROI more quickly with facts and data? So that really becomes either taking up revenue or reducing costs. So we're on the cost side, how we help them think about their workforce and bringing in the digital workers. I think that is the 26th theme to us, is more digital workers inside NASDAQ and then help our clients with digital workers.
Well, you talked about either increasing revenues, reducing costs. Either of those will boost your productivity. And it's great to have AI enable companies to do more and more. But a lot of workers are concerned about the other half of that, the cost-cutting side, and technology replacing workers, or at a minimum, forcing them to rethink what their jobs are and be reorganized. So I'd like to ask both of you to talk a little bit about some of the employment implications. How is work changing? Are there a lot of jobs that are going to be disappearing, that already are disappearing? And what new jobs are being created? Let's bring you back in, Athena.
Yeah, so we are a company that has 320,000 employees. So that's not a small number. And what is though different is that 90% of our employees are what we call frontline.
90% are what?
Of the employees is frontline, salespeople,
Yes, gotcha.
People in the volume sites, manufacturing sites, warehouses, truck drivers, so people that sell, make, and move the products. So, and only 10 is, financial planners, controllers, HR, my team, etc., etc. So, which means, actually, we have an interesting paradigm in PepsiCo. We have huge adoption and acceptance of this technology because suddenly you have a frontline that doesn't need to be trained in computer science, that doesn't need to understand coding, that doesn't need to understand, okay, what does it mean to use an AI model? It comes naturally through the UI, UX experience of the AI application layer.
Yeah.
Which, yes?
Well, just tell us a little bit about what an example of frontline use of AI, just so we have something in mind.
So, for example, we have our truck drivers, which we have the second largest fleet in the world after UPS. Wow. If you know, I mean, that's a very big fact. So our truck drivers, what do? One is they need to do maintenance of the fleet. We have engineers, right? They need to move very long distances, right? Products that are light, like a Lay's product, but products that are also heavy, like a Pepsi or a Gatorade. Which means depending on the external weather conditions, depending on what is happening in the specific state, depending on the internal conditions, we need to ensure health and safety. We need to make sure that we do route optimization. Some of them do dynamic routing, some of them do real-time routing. So being able to use the technology, one is to ensure their house, which is the trucks, is kept safe for them at the best condition with the right maintenance, number one priority. So they use AI to do monitoring.
Okay.
The second is while they drive to ensure their own safety. And what is interesting is that last year we had an extensive discussion with our drivers, and many of them are unionized.
Okay.
Right? So we said, okay, we will install real-time sensors, cameras inwards and outwards to make sure we increase your performance and the safety. Universally, everyone accepted it because they were part of the design of the AI application. So these are some great examples of how for a frontline, it enhances their job, it makes them more productive, it makes them more efficient. We link the use of technology with incentives. So we have a pay performance scheme where if you use the technology and you enhance the productivity or you enhance the effectiveness, you get a pay premium.
And is that incentive based on their overall performance or specifically tied to AI? And is the idea that they'll want to use AI to help their overall numbers?
It's both. Actually, we track, okay, how much of that lift comes from AI and how that improves the performance within the work. And we've done a couple of pilots across all the job families and the different Swiss taxonomy, and now we have been rolling that out across the organization.
Have you seen any employment effects? I mean, you said they're embracing this and they can do more things. If they're becoming more efficient, does that mean you need fewer truck drivers, or are there places where you don't need to hire as much? Or conversely, are there places where you're saying, hey, this is so productive, we need more of this?
Yeah, well, we haven't gone autonomous yet. So when we go autonomous, we will assess. No, what we have seen is in the cases of more the professional workers, the financial planners, the demand planners, the HR professionals, there is a skepticism. Okay, what does it mean in terms of my job? Does it mean that in the future we will not have a talent management organization? So in those cases, what we have done is for sure have had a very deliberate program of upskilling and reskilling the workforce. One reason was because there are tasks that they don't need to do anymore. I mean, no one wants to call the HR business partner for a certification, right? I mean, they prefer to take it directly from the portal.
Just the machine.
The machine can do it. And neither did the HR business partner. So that's one. So one, we made the jobs better. The second, there are jobs in our ecosystem that no one wants to do. No one wants to be in a warehouse and moving products around, and therefore the combination of robotics and AI was a massive unlock for us.
So you're using robotics.
We are using robotics. We are using next generation AGVs. We are using robotic arms. We are experimenting with all aspects of physical AI because there are a lot of jobs in the manufacturing sector that people don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, Nelson, you've got a very different kind of a workforce. You don't probably have a whole lot of truck drivers or frontline salespeople, but you have a lot of knowledge workers. And so how has the effect been in your organization?
Yeah, we do have a lot of frontline salespeople, but I think this is a hard question. It really is. And I look at a lot of technology companies, we talk about how we want to double revenues but keep headcount flat the next 5 years. That's hard to do if everyone has the current job that they have today. So we are a growth company, and we do talk to our employees quite a bit about we like to reinvest the dollars we're going to save into growing and having better products and building the next greatest things for our clients. And then also we offer an enormous amount of education inside NASDAQ to make them more marketable, both inside NASDAQ and outside. So that's the positive message. The hard message is you get to, it may be a role like quality assurance. We'd like to get rid of QA in the product lifecycle development. Hard to have a head of QA if you're going to do that. Right? So do you have the right person leading that effort to say you're going to really get that and it's not a very exciting job function, but at the same time, it's one where we might have 400 people in NASDAQ doing QA. So as you get better at your PDLC, you're able to eliminate some of those roles. So yeah, you do have to balance that message from the top of the house that you really, this is, in our view, I think a lot of folks view, this is a generational technology that's going to change the world for whether you like it or not. So we have to embrace it. As an employee, you have to embrace it, but you have to recognize that your job may change.
And is it changing the career ladders? Like, take QA or the other ones that you still need some senior people to manage.
I hope so. Yeah.
And but maybe you don't have as many people at the base of the pyramid. And so how do you get the people who have the experience later if you're not hiring them in the earlier parts?
I think that is a challenge, and I don't think it's affecting just the base. I think that will be one of the big challenges with AI. Some of the job eliminations are going to be those middle rows as well to lawyers, et cetera, as you get to, again, just getting machines to learn things, and also with agentic AI being able to actually give opinions. That's going to get a lot. It's going to impact every job ladder. So I think maybe robotics was different. With AI, really every job, you have to look at the lens of could I use AI to replace this job? And that includes, myself on down. So that's just, I think, the nature of where we are, and we have to, again, our view is you need to embrace that. You need to understand how this technology works, and you have to recognize your job may shift.
Can I add thanks? I think what we have seen in the professional services workshop, you can do much more with your internal employees. So many of the companies, what have they done in cycles where they have had high demand? They outsourced much more, they had contractors, they had external partners. You see a consolidation of the external ecosystem. Why? Because you don't want to fire. You want to amplify the productivity and efficiency of your people. So we see a contraction of the external ecosystem of a company and an amplification of the internal employee base.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're both able to, do more with the same number of people. You haven't had to lay people off. I mean, you're growing and you're doing it partly by affecting the external people. Do you see, like, if you look at the broader economy, do you see other places where people are going to have to make tougher decisions?
We have a unique seat at NASDAQ because we're obviously involved with ourselves. We're seeing all the new companies coming to market. We work with the hyperscalers directly as listed clients, but also as partners. And then we get to talk to all the companies maybe that are public and what they're doing. So yeah, I think every industry is different. Like the healthcare panel was amazing. Like that is just the ability to change healthcare is incredible. But then you do get to other industries where you're certainly seeing a great impact. You mentioned, let's say banking, for example. Do you need analysts anymore? Well, you don't need as much, but as you said, how do then the next generation of bankers, how do they learn? So I think there's some sectors really wrestling with how do you educate those entry-level employees that you may not need to do the job function they used to have, some of the manual work, but how do they get the expertise to be there for the next generation? So I think every industry struggles with how they're going to leverage this in a very positive way, where the challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one other element. There are countries that we operate that there isn't available workforce. I mean, there is an aging population, the unemployment is too low. So AI is a big unlock for growth.
That's the way you can grow without hiring more people.
Products, yeah.
We're talking about some of the benefits, productivity, and so forth. What about some of the risks? And so, certainly in financial services, you have to be very careful in food, safety. What kinds of guardrails are you putting in place to prevent the hallucination and the other risks that might be important? And when you get increasingly agentic AI that's able to not just go from text to text, but from text to action, those risks become multiplied. So tell us about how you're managing those risks. Why don't we start with you, Athena?
Yeah, so firstly, we have a responsible AI policy, not framework, policy in the organization. It's part of the enterprise risk management framework. It's being assessed by the board, by the audit committee, by control, and has been recognized by Gartner as best in class. We've also shared with the governments that we operate so they can understand and they can make sure whatever we have in place, if we get to be audited for things that, they're very important in the markets that we operate. We have the traceability, we have the action. We make sure we capture pretty much any hallucination of the model. We own the ecosystem of AI, so we are the orchestrator of AI in the organization, which is also quite important, because then we manage, whether it's at the agentic or Gen AI, exactly how the data, the insights, the modeling, the LLMs, work and flow within the ecosystem of the organization. And also what we have done on top of that is we have made sure that we have a very strong audit mechanism. One is through the processes of the company, but also we have really enhanced our cyber and InfoSec practices.
And you talked a little bit about Verafin, and what are some of the other things you're doing in terms of addressing security and other risks?
I think you nailed it. I mean, I think a lot of companies of really size need to have, as much as we like to move fast at NASDAQ, we do have a very central organization that is, because we are regulated, it has to be auditable, it has to have all the guardrails, and we use a lot of internal tooling to do that. So,
So I want to talk about your role at NASDAQ in enabling this whole revolution, because, we've talked about the technology, and the United States is amazing technology companies and stack. But another thing that sometimes isn't appreciated is the depth of the capital markets.
Yeah.
And NASDAQ obviously has been a leader in providing capital, making it, more liquidity and more access to capital for the companies that are driving this. And now these numbers are getting really, really big. And so tell us a little bit about how NASDAQ addresses that.
Yeah, and we really have not been a player to do that yet, but it's coming. So I think you look at last year, I think the statistic is 1% of U.S. GDP was spent on AI infrastructure. If you look at big cycles, the railroad, telephone, internet, it was closer to 2 to 4%. So we still have a lot of spending to do. One difference of this cycle is that a lot of the fundings come from incredibly well-funded, the hyperscalers. It's coming from the industry at scale we've never seen before, how quickly it is. But we're getting to the point now where we do think 26 is a pivot year, 27, where the public markets will play a role. So the public markets represent about 125 trillion in market capitalization.
Wow.
Okay, so you look at that kind of capital.
What share of that do you guys have?
Yeah, we have 39 of it as of this minute. We've got.
I think it went down a little this afternoon.
We've got 23%. We have 23% of it. But if you look at the public market, so you're hearing in the news that there's gonna be some major, potentially large IPOs. It could be on the scale we've never ever seen before. The largest IPO to date raised $29 billion. That was Aramco. But these could be even larger numbers, and they will tap the public market many times. So I think you have to get to a public market model, and we have seen that in past kind of hyper cycles where you need public capital to do that. So I think that's where NASDAQ will play a role.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that. And let me just wrap up. We're almost out of time here. I just want to talk about using AI for innovation and developing new products, new marketing campaigns. Let's start with you, Athena. You're constantly developing new products, testing new ways of marketing them. How is AI helping with that?
Well, massively. We have an amazing innovation pipeline. I mean, we have brands, our brands, Gatorade, Lay's, Cheetos, Doritos, Quaker, Pepsi. But all of those require very quick reformulation if we want to do innovation. Then we bring new products in the market all the time. And many of the products came through this innovation cycle. So one is we cut our cycles of innovation for new product development to less than 2 months. So we can go to market in less than 2 months, even when it comes to new products, net new products. Because we have fully streamlined and automated our innovation idea to market process and our innovation.
And does it help window down? I mean, you can make lots of different variants in some of those products, and knowing which ones are going to be successful, AI helps you with that?
Absolutely, because in the past, what you would do, you would go through consumer panels, you would go through the tasting process, you would do an A/B testing in the market. That would take at least 6 to 9 months before you were able then to shape agreements with the retailers and then launch the product. Now we don't have to do that. Actually, what happens is that we give the consumers, we have still panels, all different types of variations because we are able to churn them very fast, and you can test online. You can start with the digital commerce, social commerce platforms. You don't even have to take them in the brick and mortar.
Well, as an economist, I'm very excited. It's great to get these efficiencies in the economy, but when you start developing new products and innovations, that just expands the set of things that we can do, and I appreciate that. How about over at NASDAQ?
Yeah, so we have internally our own Gen AI platform that our employees are allowed to test on regularly. And we see some things that are working internally, then we start thinking, is it production ready to go into market? So we constantly, on average, have 50 different projects going on at any moment with our products to say, how can they help our clients take that next leap forward? And some products you're trying to keep up with what's in market, and others where we really find the value is when it's our own, we call it gold source data. So we have a special team working with just our data to say, how do we actually monetize that and bring that to market and chart? Because I think with you're a software company or a technology company, you're trying to decide how you monetize your AI in market. So it has to be something really that next step function better. We can prove, again, the revenue equation, the cost equation with clients. So we have a lot of teams are really focused on how we kind of get things to market very, very quickly.
Well, that's terrific. Yeah, everything's about speed and innovation, so it's great that you're doing that. Well, we are unfortunately out of time. Nelson, Athena, thank you so much. I appreciate what you're doing to help drive value from AI. Thank you.